Oh, hi.
Yorkshire Terrier, one of the most important cities of England, the main town and a unitary administrative unit with the status of city in a southeast part of the ceremonial county of North Yorkshire, at confluence of the Foss River and with the Ouse River. In the city, the residence of the Archbishop of the province York is located.
The city has rich historical and cultural heritage, long time on his background the major political events which had an impact on all course of history of the English kingdom developed.
Tourism is also important article of city income. York is famous for numerous historical and architectural monuments, the most known of which is the York Cathedral. The main sports constructions of the city are the York Hippodrome and Stadium of Crescent Kitcat, home stadium of the soccer team York City. On the Ouse River, both river walks and sports competitions are possible. The traditional capital of the north of England, the city arose in 71 AD on the basis of the Roman fortress Eberach called probably by the name of one of the tribes of Britons living in those regions. Romans made Eberach the capital of the province the Lower Britain. By the end of the Roman dominion in 415, the settlement was occupied by the German tribe of Angel, renamed into Eoforwic, and became the capital of the kingdom of Northumbria founded by them. In Eberach in 211 the Roman Emperor Septimius Sever died. And on July 25, 360 Emperor Constantius Law, then troops proclaimed by the emperor his son Constantine the Great, died here. Since the 6th century the city became the centre of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Northumbria. The first bishop of York Minster, Paulin, received the dignity in Wooden Church, on which place later there was York Minster. Paulin christened there in 627 the King Edwin Esviati. The city became the archbishopric in 732. Since 735, the residence of the Archbishop York. The Vikings who occupied the city in 866 renamed them into Jorvik. Then the city became the capital of the kingdom of the same name, which was located on the most part of northern England. After conquest of England by Normans, the city received the modern name, which earliest mention belongs to the 13th century. In the Middle Ages, York became the main centre of trade in wool and a northern metropolitanate of the English kingdom. The second was only in Canterbury. In the Middle Ages, the well-being of the city was based on trade in the wood. The location of the city in the middle of the York Valley, on the Ouse River, on a half of a way between London and Edinburgh, was the reason that York very long held important position in the transport system of the country.
In the 19th century, under the influence of the financier George Hudson, York became the important railway junction and the production centre of the empire.
For the last decades, the city economy in many respects switched from railway and confectionery production to services sector.
The York University and Health Services became the chief employers today.
In the 19th century in the city there were factories and the plants of glass and iron products, carpets, wallpaper and luxury goods, brisk trade in coal, the grain exchange.
Railway junction.
Most of all, York is obliged by the prosperity to concentration in the 19th century of the nobility of northern England. In a century, 1890-1991, the number of inhabitants increased from to 100,600 people. The name York comes from the old Latin name given the city by Romans. This name is mentioned in different sources as Eberich, Eberic and Eberaki. The first mention of York belongs to 104 years. It was written on the wooden plate for the letter found on ruins of the Roman fortress of Vindeland in Northumbria.
The origin of the name Eberic inaccuracy is unknown, as there are no data on language which spoke local population at the time of the Roman gain. There is an opinion that the people living in those regions spoke one of the Celtic languages, related to modern Welsh.
The theories giving presumable value of the name rely on knowledge obtained from other Celtic languages. So, for example, possible value is the place where yew trees grow. It designates the word Eberachan, existing in language of Britons. The second possible value, Field di Borassa. Anglia, the territories of Britain which took a considerable part at the beginning of the Middle Ages, including Eberic, called the city of Eowarwick. Most likely, it was made because of accord with the Anglo-Saxon word Eofor, designating a wild boar. The termination wick meant only place. When in 866 tribes of the Danish Vikings occupied the city, they changed the name after their own fashion, so the city received the name Jorvik. After Norman conquest of England, York found the modern name. The first modern writing of the word York, but not previous York and York options, belongs to the 13th century. However, and today names of many city places and the companies, such as of the Ebertaxis taxi, are connected with an old Roman name. Roman wall and western angular tower of the York fort. The top half of a laying was laid already in the Middle Ages. Archaeological finds speak about presence of people near York already in Mesolith, between 800 and 700 years BB. It is unknown whether those settlements were constant or temporary. On Site A, Haslington East in York, the oldest remained human brain is found in Britain. It is dated age of 673, 482 years BB. The calibrated date.
Sequencing of DNA samples from a brain gave close coincidence to the haplogroup EJD, defined that only several residents of Tuscany and the Middle East and not identified in Great Britain. By means of methods of proteomics, it was succeeded to find two proteins specific to a brain and Claudin -11.
By the time of gain by Romans of Britain, in the neighborhood of the modern city, the tribe known to Romans under a name of Brigant lived. First, all area of dwelling of the tribe became the territory, dependent on Rome, without the special resistance of Brigant. However, after their leaders began to show the increasing hostility to Rome, that led to the fact that the 9th Roman legion was sent to the north from Humber, to lands to the tribe. His city was founded in 71 when the 9th Legion subdued Brigant and built wooden fortress on the tableland over the Ouse River, near the place where Waters Ponds merge with Foss River waters. The fortress, later reconstructed in a stone, occupied the space of 20 hectares in size. Her garrison totaled 600 soldiers. The place where earlier there was a fortress is located under the base of the York Cathedral. Recent excavation opened a part of her ancient walls. Emperors Adrian, the Septimi North and Constantius I Lord during various military campaigns often were in York together with the Yards. The Septimi North during stay in the city was proclaimed by York the capital of the province Britain Inferior, and, apparently, he granted to the settlement all privileges of colony or the city. The Emperor Constantius I died in the time spent in the city in 306, and the soldiers who were in fortress proclaimed his son Constantine the Great the following emperor. In the 7th century, in government of the King Edwin, York became the main city of the Kingdom of Northumbria. In 627 the first church of the city was constructed of a tree, in it the King Edwin was baptized. He ordered to build up church in a stone, however because of murder of the king in 633 Edwin's successor had to carry out this task on a throne, to Oswald.
Next century at St. Peter's School at the York Cathedral, famous Alcuin, the theologian and the teacher who subsequently became one of founders of so-called Carolingian Renaissance, at court of Charles the Great served and taught.
In the 9th century Northumbria fell a victim of aggressive campaigns of Vikings. Yorkshire Terrier was captured in 866. At new governors the city became the large river port, important point in the intensive system of the trade created by merchants Vikings in northern Europe. The last governor of independent Jorvik, Eric the Bloody Poleaxe, was expelled by the Anglo-Saxon King Edred during fight for reunification of England. In 1068, in 2 years after Norman conquest of England, York people rose. The first revolt was successful, but then William the Conqueror suppressed it. He at once constructed 2 wooden fortresses on both sides of the Ouse River which are still visible. The first stone cathedral, Minster, was strongly damaged as a result of the fire at a revolt, and was decided to build the new building on the new place later. About 1080 the Archbishop Thomas began construction of cathedral on the modern place. In the 12th century York began to prosper thanks to the situation in the center of fine retail chain stores. It became large shopping center and Hanseatic port. The York merchants imported fabrics, wax, paper and oats from the Netherlands and also exported grain to Gascony, both grain and wool to the Netherlands. The King Henry I granted to the city the first charter confirming the right of trade in England and Europe.
As a result of reform of 1889, York was transformed to the city-county along with 7 other cities of the historical county of Yorkshire.
In 1974 the city-county of York as the area was included into not metropolitan county of North Yorkshire. The city of York is transformed to unitary unit on April 1, 1996 from the district York of not metropolitan county of North Yorkshire.
Occupies the territory of 271 km.
Also East Riding of Yorkshire in the south, the west and the north with not metropolitan county of North Yorkshire borders in the east on the ceremonial county.
In the territory of unitary unit York 208,400 people live, at average population density 687 people/km.
Middle 2016. Yorkshire Terrier is operated by the City Council consisting of 47 deputies elected in 22 districts. As a result of the last elections 26 places in council are taken by Labourists.
Economy. In York the headquarters of the Lord Company CPT Group and also large construction company Persimmon PLE which actions are included into base of calculation of the SS 250 index is located. In York the professional York City Football Club acting in a season 2020/2021 in Northern National League is based. York City accepts rivals at Stadium Botham Crescent. Capacity of 8256 viewers.
Sites: York Cathedral, York Minster, the 13th-14th centuries. City walls of the 14th century with 10 gate. Shred of Evervire Street of Butchers Shambles, the 14th-16th centuries. Abbey of St. Mary, 13th century. Set of medieval churches. Clifford's Tower, the only remained tower of the York Castle, 13th century. Museum of the York Castle. The Palace the Lord Mayor with the Ionic columns. Royal Theatre. National Railway Museum. The University. Since 1963. Richard York Hospital. The well-known Yorkshire Hospital founded more than 220 years ago. Yorkshire Terrier in literature.
The city of York is the homeland of the famous literary hero, Robinson Crusoe, from novels by Danijal Defoe.
Also it is mentioned in the novel Ivanhoe by Walter Scott. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.